This is Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast, with your hosts, Brandon Spinner and Michael Burns.
And welcome into another episode of Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. I am Brandon Spinner alongside my best pal, Mikey Burns. How you doing tonight, Michael?
Well, I'm staring at my new TV on the wall as the Cubs put up a W. A checkout put up the W behind me and on the shirt. Let's go. Right there, Brandon. There it is. W on the wall,
You're
baby.
flying it. Flying the W.
So much happier when that W is flying. So much happier. So I'm
That
not
is
a
their
very happy
second win of the year.
I'm apparently not a very happy person then.
No, you haven't lived much of a happy life if that's the only way that you are happy. Again, this is Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. I am Brandon. This is Michael Burns. If this is your first experience with us, welcome. Thank you for listening. We talk baseball and bourbon or whiskey as a whole.
Brown water.
Yeah, brown water. We are here. I think this is episode 20, Michael.
It is.
At least it's our 20th baseball and bourbon episode. We've done multiple past that number, but this is like as a whole, the baseball and bourbon portion of it combined. This is number 20. So we've made it to 20. Thank you to each and every one of our followers, our fans, our friends who listen in and chime in. We're now at 63 YouTube subscribers after an amazing week in the last week. So thank you to the new subscribers. I know one that just popped up was Bill Badger. You can subscribe to us on YouTube. You're watching on it right now. Maybe hit that subscribe button below. It's easy. And if you hit that, there might be a bell that pops up. Make sure you just hit subscribe and send me all the notifications. And then IG, you can find us on Instagram, Barrels and Barrels Pod. Again, that's Barrels, the letter N, Barrels Pod. We are nearly to 1,000 followers. I think last check we were at 926. So thank you. We've just got an influx of followers over the last couple of weeks. So head on over there.
We might have to have a giveaway for 1,000.
We might have to. We got to talk to Max. Maybe Max and us team up. So head on over to our Instagram if you want potential to win something free, or at least I guess the giveaway. We'll figure it out here if we get close throughout the next couple of days. You can also find us on Facebook. We're now over 200 followers on Facebook, not as active, but still kind of cool. We hit that milestone over the last couple of days. That is also Barrels and Barrels Pod. That's all you have to do is type that in. And also that's how you can find us on YouTube with that same handle. Twitter is Barrels and Barrels. We've been pretty active about that lately. And also, if you're not just on YouTube or the socials and you're listening, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as Stitcher, Google, iHeart, and Amazon. Cool thing, we got another comment and another review on Apple Podcast. 14th 5-star out of 14. So heck yeah. Big shout out to Chris Gastrite for sending that in. And then also reviews on Spotify. We need more of those. We got a 5-star rating right now, but it doesn't show us the average. But also, we got our first Spotify comment on a post, and that came from Chris Wing. So thanks to Chris Wing for doing that and listening. So you can always comment on the bottom of our show in Spotify. I don't know if you knew this. And also, sometimes we'll put some polls in there so you can vote on something maybe that's relevant in the episode. We'll go do that one right now. We'll figure something out in the episode, and you can vote on it now.
There we go.
So just find it there in the Spotify app if that's where you're listening. So this is a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Thank you to each and every one of you. Oh, last thing. We've got T-shirts order. This is your last call for T-shirts. So if you want a T-shirt, reach out. Send us an email, barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. We've got T-shirts. And Michael, if you're watching him on YouTube, he's got something on his head.
I sure do. Turned out great. Turned out great.
It did turn out great. And I want to thank Michael for sending me one as well. So I'm going to sport. It's not even broken in. I still got the sticker and the tag on it. And that's how I'm going to do this episode because I'm fancy.
That's how they used to do it, man.
Yeah. You can find what this looks like. It's a hat on our YouTube page. Again, so there's another push to your YouTube. Barrels and Barrels, Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Let's go with bourbon right off the top, Michael. This one, I want to give a big shout out to my buddy, one of my best friends in life, Matt DeBrew, and his girlfriend, Heidi. They sent this bottle to me in the mail as a gift. They bought it on New Year's Eve, I believe, as they were driving through Kentucky. We're going with Rabbit Hole. I figured it was apropos that it is the week of Easter. So we've got to go with Rabbit Hole because the Easter Bunny, and we're gonna be the Easter Bunny of bourbon. So being the Easter Bunny of bourbon, we didn't get a single email last week asking us to send a sample. I think it may be because it was very late in the podcast. I don't know. Maybe some of you don't listen.
We did it early. We did it early too.
I know. It was like 15 minutes in. Well, we're now 5 minutes in, and I want to say, since it's the Easter Bunny episode, I will be an Easter Bunny to 2 people. The first 2 to reach out, whether that's Instagram DMs or via email, Barrels and Barrels Pod on Instagram and barrelsandbarrels@gmail.com. The first 2 people, I'm counting on someone to email. We had 110 listeners in that last episode, so we should at least have had one person reach out. But
what are we supposed to say?
You get no, you do not get another one, Michael. We did this last week, but
you didn't clarify.
You'll get a sample of what we're sampling tonight, and that is Rabbit Hole, the Heigold Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. This one comes in from, again, Rabbit Hole Distillery out of Louisville. I have heard amazing things about the distillery. It was established in 2012. I've heard the tour is fantastic. Have yet to try the juice, so this will be my first time trying Rabbit Hole. Have you had anything?
They're in Louisville, aren't they? Yeah, I thought you just said Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of spots right down there in downtown Louisville. Angel's Envy, I believe, is there too.
Yeah, so, Angel's Envy downtown, Evan Williams, that's where Old Forester is. There's the whole Whiskey Row down there. But
I'll have to meet you there, Brandon. I'll have to meet you in Louisville.
We've been trying to plan that for a while, pal.
Whoa. All right.
It's okay. I'm just.
I have had Rabbit Hole. I had the red one.
I think that's Derringer.
Yes, I have had the one.
Is it Bear Grail or Bear something or? Boxer Grail and then Cave Hill. I know Cave Hill's one of them. Oh, that's the only time you had it? Mm-hmm. I know Derringer is the red one.
I think I had it when we met up last time. Last time we met up is when I had it. Late in the night.
Oh, did we have it?
That's when I had the Rabbit Hole. Yes. I did at least.
Oh, we did. I removed that back. I don't know if we remember it. That was the night of the National Barrel Company episode, and let's just say we may have been 12 or 25 in.
They were tasty. So at least the first 12.
So this is Behringer, not Behringer, Heigold. So this is Rabbit Hole Heigold. It is the blue bottle. If you're trying to look for it on your shelves, a nice pop. What cool thing? I don't know if you can see this, Michael, but on the cork, there's actually a rabbit hopping on the cork.
Oh yeah, I can see it.
So that's pretty cool. This is 95 proof, so it's 47.5 alcohol by volume. It's got an interesting mash bill. They consider this a high rye, small batch. They consider it a high rye because, get this mash bill, 70% corn, 25% malted rye, and also 5% malted barley. That's what it says on the bottle. However, if you go and look on their website, it's a little different. It's 70% corn, 25% German malted rye, and then 5% malted barley. So it's a little different. They call it a high rye because it's higher as the second ingredient. That's all they say.
Yeah. It's immediately on the nose. It's sweet smelling. I get like not quite like gummy worms, but like a fruit snack on the nose right away. It smells tasty.
I can see that. I get sweet tarts.
Yeah. It smells tasty. It smells good. I get a little bit of rye spice. Yeah, it smells like candy, like a candied caramel maybe. Maybe even caramel's too deep of a.
I got butterscotch.
Do you?
Yeah. It's got a maltiness to it too. Like I can smell the malt.
Does the malt add? What is it between a rye and malted rye? What would that do for the profile? Any idea?
So anything that's malted, I believe they let germinate and start to grow, and then they harvest it.
Otherwise, at least they don't let it germinate before.
Right. So they just take they would take the wheat seed or grain and mash it, but then they let it germinate and all that. So that's what I was told at New Riff. I could be completely wrong, but
that's what they do at New Riff, at least.
Yes. Well, they really believe in a malted everything in New Riff. If you could malt corn, they would do it.
Malted chocolate oats.
Yep, malted chocolate oats. They do their rye is also malted, and this is a 25% malted German rye. It's kind of cool because the bourbon is actually named after a German immigrant, Christian Heigold, who's actually a stonecutter in Louisville. So I get a maltiness up on the nose. Kind of has like a... It even becomes dusty to me.
What makes it dusty? Just
like
kind of gives
it
it
smells like it's been in a cabinet.
Not smoky, like the opposite of smoky, maybe.
Almost like older. Does that make sense? Like it's got a...
It doesn't smell young. How about that?
Right.
It's
got a dusty
nose. Do you get
nose
oak
to me.
on this? I mean, it smells like just smells like a sweet bourbon. If I closed my eyes and pointed at one on the shelf, it's a sweetness of like Buffalo Trace. It's not overly sweet.
I get a sweetness on the nose.
I actually kind of cheated. That comparison came because I took my first sip, and that's where that comp came from. So you get like the barrel dovetails that are very fruity, very sweet. I think can get into like more of the dessert bourbon category, where you got the Buffalo Trace level type of sweet that just adds a nice flavor and a nice complexity to it. What do you think after that palate tongue coater there?
I think sweet tarts for me again. It's got a sweet tarty. It's sweet, but it's not like dessert sweet, right? Right. I think there's a difference between dessert sweet and like sweet. This has like a candy sweetness to it, like a sugar candy sweetness. It does have. I think it hits a little harder right up front than I anticipated.
And what's the proofage on this?
95. So not too high. This is underneath a lot of what we've reviewed and what we've drank, and this is pretty good.
Yeah, it doesn't drink syrupy though for under 100. Anytime I get below 100, I get a little worried. Below 90, I'm kind of scared to spend money on. I'll go. Of course, you gotta buy stuff in the 92, 94 of what blenders and distillers say is the sweet spot.
Right.
I do like that heat up in the 100s, one teens and such.
I think this drinks hotter.
Definitely, I think it drinks hotter. It does. It's not thick like you get with that lower proofage stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How's the viscosity for you?
It's dripping down the glass pretty good to me. I don't know about you. Like as I splash it, it like has almost that maker's mark drip down the side of the glass, which I think is actually very important. It's more syrupy, I guess, in the glass to me, running down the sides, but that tells me that it's not a thin bourbon by any means.
I mean, if this and blinded it with Buffalo Trace, I think you'd have a hard time.
I think you might pick this over Buffalo Trace. If you're looking for a little, I think if you're looking for a little bit higher of a proofage and higher of a pour, like feeling like it drinks higher, I think this would probably beat Buffalo Trace on that regard. I got pepper on it. The more I've chewed on it and pulled from it, it's got like a sweetness, like that candy sweetness, as I mentioned up front, and then it becomes a little more peppery, and even has that like. I'm going to use it again. I think you used it last week. It's like the cinnamon big red gum kind of spiciness to it. Okay. Not like a sharp spiciness, but like almost a tingling chewing gum.
Is that what lingers for you, or is there some of the other fruitiness and sweetness that lingers?
I get more of a not bitter. What lingers to me the most is I get like an oaky back leg to it.
Me too. Yeah, I would say it's that sweetness candy up front. Then it gets that white pepper kind of pepper rye. Not it doesn't hit heavy, but it's just a nice little. It reminds you that it's 95 proof. It's whiskey you're drinking, and then finishes with that oak. This is a great classic profile right here.
Yeah, and we're going to go. I'm at least going to post this on the Pix app, so you can go check that out. Pix app. I know Michael just sent one out to me the other day. I really like using that because I can help track something that I like, something that I don't like, and it factors all that together and Do you get emails telling you like, hey, this is matching your profile and it's this amount of money? Have you gotten those emails yet?
I have gotten one of those.
So the more you review, the more emails and matches you'll get. Like one of them told me I probably match to a Knob Creek 12. Yep, that hits right on. It also told me that I probably match up to an Old Forester 1920. Yep, because that's one of my favorite pours of all time that I've had. So go check out PicksApp. We are not sponsored by them by any means. We would love to be. We're just not sponsored by them. We're just literally putting out our actual like thoughts without getting paid. And that's what we do with our bourbon reviews too. We have been given bottles by some companies. Some bottles we have purchased ourselves, and we give a fair, honest review each and every time. And if you've listened, you know Michael, he cuts some bottles down, so he doesn't hold his punches back. But
I do
we
that.
are Barrels and Barrels.
Yeah, I do that because
What?
if we're on here and I'm going to recommend something, I'm not going to spend my money on that again. You know,
Right.
And
Well,
then
we don't want our listeners to be swayed a different way, because then that as someone who works on television and like I'm trying to give you the best information possible, that's the same way I think when it comes to doing the podcast, is giving my honest opinions and letting it go from there. I'm hoping not to upset a distillery, but I want to give them that, okay, well, maybe I think you could leave it in the barrel another 6 months and it could do something different. So on our Barrels and Barrels of Bourbon and Baseball podcast rating scale, which ranks from top to the top, that's Hall of Fame. Obviously, not every player is a Hall of Famer. Only 1% of them make it to Cooperstown.
So here we go. What is that number? 4% make it into Cooperstown, New York.
1%.
1% make it into Cooperstown, New York.
Cooperstown, New York, the home of the MLB Hall of Fame. 2 on the list is All-Star, because you've got All-Stars in your lineup every year. There's at least one All-Star on every team every year, per rule. But usually some teams have 2 or 3. Sometimes there's been 5 or 6. An All-Star is not necessarily a Hall of Famer, but one of the best players in the game during that era. That's the bottle that you want to have a backup to your backup of. Then next on the list, everyday player. That is someone that's always on your bar, right? Like just like a player, Michael. Always in the lineup, always on your bar.
He might have a down year, down single barrel, but hey, he's gonna be there on your bar. You pick him up, he's gonna be something that you want to share when folks come over.
Yeah, consistently.
How about you're willing to share? That you're
Willing to
like,
share,
hey,
yes.
this is good. I'm willing to share this with you. When you get to that All-Star Hall of Fame, I might
That's where I
not
like
be
to
as
share
willing.
with my best friends. I'm not sharing with everybody, but I'm sharing with my best friends.
I'm not sharing anybody that's gonna put some ice cubes in it, or even think about putting Coke in it.
Cocaine or Coke?
Either.
Well, I mean, you could. Yeah. Well, moving on. Next on the list is a bench player. That is a player who is on the team, is not the best player on the team, but comes in, mixes it up. Think about a pinch hitter. Think about that spot starter who comes in.
Freaking Nelson Cruz came in as a bench player, pinched hit, actually came in and hit a first pitch home run. I mean, those guys are valuable. Yeah.
Right. Comes in, makes impact. Really, sometimes they're the glue to your team. That's a bottle that you may always have on the bar. You may go in streaks. So every once in a while, you may have a bench player. And then finally on our list, the DFA, the designate for assignment. You are off the team. We don't want you on our team any longer. Go find another home or head back to the minors. So on our 5-scale rating scale, Michael Burns, where do you rate this?
Brandon, I've got to give this guy an all-star. This guy is delicious. I would go to it again. I might have to go find a bottle of it.
Cue the music.
It was sweet up front, not overly sweet. It had a little bit of spice in there and finished oak. That's what you ask for from a bourbon. It had complexity. It drank hot, but was proofed lower. This is a classic bourbon profile right here, and it was good. So, all-star.
Is that your second or third?
Third,
because you did one from Nashville Barrel Company. You did the Makers.
A Nash Tucky and a Makers.
Okay, so that is his third. Wow.
I'm surprised. I did not expect all-star.
Neither did I. I did not expect you I did not expect you to all-star. I'm actually going to everyday player it. I think that it is a very good pour. I don't know if it's going to be one that I'm like, this is my favorite of the bunch, but I would have this bottle on my bar at all times. I think you're right where it kind of competes with that Buffalo Trace. This is going to be a little bit higher in a price than Buffalo Trace, but probably a little easier to find.
Right.
$69.9 or $59.99 is MSRP. I've seen it as high as $70. So it's maybe double the price, but it's a little more accessible.
I'm looking at your notes. Is that really only a 3-year bourbon?
It says 3 years aged matured over 3 years in new charred American oak barrels. So,
wow.
Yes.
Wow, I'm stunned. I can't believe I just all-starred a 3-year-old bourbon.
Hey, it tastes good. Yeah,
That's the thing. When you blind some stuff, you'll be surprised. Just you know.
I wonder if we start doing the ratings before I start giving out the statistics. Because
like
maybe
the age and MSRP.
Like the age, the mash bill, and the MSRP.
No, I want to know the mash bill just so as I'm tasting it, and the MSRP does factor a little bit.
I know that factored big time in one of your ratings.
Right. Well, there's two of them. I went, anyways, but because if it's if this was,
and you can find those in past podcasts.
Right.
Go ahead.
So if this was like $300, I'd be like, you know what? I'm not all-starring this guy because of the price.
Right.
That doesn't put too much into the rating, though. I try to go mostly off of the palate, the nose. I mean, this was a great nose too.
Very good nose.
God,
very sweet.
3 years old is all. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I'm cracking up and pouring another one. One thing it does say on the bottle is it's aged in handcraft casks by Kelvin Cooperage. Kelvin, if you haven't checked out what they're doing, it's actually really cool. They're really starting to gain popularity. So go look up some stuff on Kelvin Cooperage. We'll probably have some more on them in a later episode. We can dive down in the nitty gritty. I don't want to give inaccurate stuff. Oh, you need more.
I'm going to go get Buffalo Trace real quick. So give me 2 seconds. It's right here.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to, as we get into the baseball facts here, I am going to taste test this against Buffalo Trace, which I just compared it to. It is a store pick from McScrooge's in Knoxville area, Tennessee.
So store picks generally are a little bit better, I would say.
So there you go. So it's a good. I'm really putting it to the test. Ooh, that was a heavy pour. Ooh.
So there you heard it. Michael is going to compare this to Buffalo Trace because that is what he did compare it to a little bit earlier as well. So moving on to baseball, we use trivia usually. If you're a new listener, I have a trivia question every week for Michael. And this week's, who was the last San Diego Padre outside of Tony Gwynn to win the National League batting title?
The National League batting title for the San Diego Padres. I have two names that come right to mind. How about Sandy Alomar Jr.?
No.
Okay. The other one in the back of my hand was Clemente, but he didn't play for the Padres, did he?
No, he played for the Pirates.
Yeah, so Sandy Alomar Jr. was my guess.
Sandy Alomar Jr. is not correct, as I had already mentioned. I didn't realize this guy won the batting title with the Padres. It's Gary Sheffield.
He was with the Padres?
Yeah, in 1992, he hit .330. So I think of him as a Marlin and a Yankee.
A Brave. They used to have,
you lived in
Turner
Braves
Field,
territory.
Turner Field had chefs. So Sheffield's chefs. Like they give everyone in that section a chef's hat. And they had
that's
a giant
awesome.
sign for it. Chefs.
I think of him as a Marlin, as a Yankee, and a Tiger. Those are the teams that come to mind for Sheffield. I didn't realize Padres. He's a Hall of Famer too now, I think, right? I believe so. Yeah, I think he just got in a couple of years ago. I could be wrong, or he's at least I think he got in. But moving on, that was our trivia question as Michael looks that up for me. We're moving on. Baseball is here. We had opening day last week, Thursday. I had an amazing opening day experience that I'd like to talk about here at some point. But we've had a lot of baseball since then. It's been 5-6 days of baseball for some spots. Some teams are looking good. Some are, what are you doing? first off, the rules. We had new rules this year. That was going to be the talk of the town. We heard a lot about it in spring training, but once you put it into play in the real game, it does make a little bit of a difference in spring training, and those games don't really matter. So the rules, right, and you're a little more relaxed. You're not as on as you may be. So the first rule, what's the biggest rule change that you've noticed?
The pitch clock.
Mm-hmm.
Batter's got to be in there with 8 seconds looking up. In spring training, there was getting used to, and I think guys relax. You saw a couple guys who would step out and then quickly jump right back in and be like, oh, crap, I got to get back in. Of course, you saw games end on a strike 3 call from a pitch clock violation.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most you see. You see, it's kind of, in one way, I enjoy it. If I'm going to sit down and watch a game, it's nice that it goes a little quicker. At bats happen quicker. I'm not waiting for the dude to adjust his batting gloves. I'm not waiting for the pitcher to point to the sky and draw his whole family heritage in the back of the mound in the dirt. The game moves at a quicker pace, but with Sunday Night Baseball now, the games are over so fast on Sunday Night Baseball. I'm expecting to put the kids down, to be able to turn on, and Sunday Night Baseball's on, and the game's already over. So maybe now, because of the shorter rule, you can make Sunday Night Baseball like the NFL does, 2 games. An early.
They normally only do that on the opening weekend.
Oh, okay. So do an early and a late. Give me something. Give baseball all day. They should always have a game starting at 1, and they should always have a game starting at 3. Always the game starting at 5, and a game always starting at 7. And for you weird West Coast people, a game always starting at 9 Central Time.
The only thing the players would only fight against that just because of the fact that their body clocks and all the travel in baseball. But I'm not going to get into that.
You think Rob Manfred cares about the players? You think Rob Manfred
cares about the game? But that's a different discussion for a different time. I will say, so I went to a game yesterday. I went and saw the Cubs and the Reds, and that was my first in-game experience with the pitch clock. So I got to notice and see things that I hadn't experienced before, right? It was the first time putting eyes on the pitch clock, not necessarily the clock itself, because you can see it, but how it affects the game. And the game moved, man. I mean, there were 13 runs yesterday. In the first inning alone, they scored 6 runs between the two teams. There was 3 runs in the top, 3 runs in the bottom. How long would that have normally taken in a normal game? Right.
45 minutes.
Yeah. 24 minutes from first pitch to the end of the first inning. 6 runs, multiple hits. They had 11 hits combined in the first inning alone. Think about the amount of games that go with 11 hits total. In the first inning alone, there were 11 hits, and the inning only took 24 total minutes. It's ridiculous, and it was cool. It felt like the game had a good pace. I didn't notice that the pitch clock. There weren't any violations. There weren't any infractions. And outside of the time ticking down, which you were paying a little more attention to because you were in the stadium for the first time, I didn't notice it changed the game at all.
Most guys who in the minor leagues who have been in the minor leagues recent, have no problem with it. Hayden Wesneski, who went today, Wesneski, who went today. You see him; he's popping up. He's getting right back up there. And that's what he's used to, where it's those guys who lick the fingers, take the hat off, rub the ball.
Kelly Jansen.
Yeah, look up to their ancestors to figure out which pitch they want to throw next, put the hat back on, grab some pine tar, because the veterans are doing it, and grab that baseball and finally step on the mat.
Yeah. I thought it's been a great rule change. Some of these games are finishing a little faster than I maybe hoped for. There was I believe, Guardians and Mariners game that finished in like 2 hours and 2 minutes or something along those lines. Yeah. But overall, I think it's been a very good change to the game, except you had one example today that you didn't like. Yeah,
so the umpires need to be on the lookout. If a player comes up and calls time for that pitch clock, it happened today. They need to grant it. The moment that hand comes up, in the past, players used to always ask for time, and the umpires didn't have to grant it. But now, if they're allowed one timeout, you grant it the moment they ask for it. So today, Manny Machado steps in the box. I don't know what the count was, but he had 2 strikes on him. And he was planning, you could tell, planning to use his timeout because he was standing in the box and adjusting his gloves, kind of just chilling out. He looked up, saw he had 1 second left, put his hand up, and the umpire didn't grant it. Instead, waited that 1 second to say, time, pitch clock violation, Machado is out, strike 3. If he has one timeout, it's now the umpire has to grant it. Has to.
Yeah.
And in the past, they didn't have to, but now that he is
guaranteed
that one timeout, you have to give it to him. And it ended up it changed the game a little bit because Machado stood there and complained a little bit, and then said something as he went to walk away, and the umpire tossed him. Who knows what he said, but he was walking away. The umpires need to be held accountable. Yeah, it must something. But I say it changed the game a little bit because Nelson Cruz came in then as the DH, as Machado was DH in the day today. And Nelson Cruz, in his first at-bat, hit a first pitch rocket home run into the left field deck.
So it worked for the Padres, but...
Worked for the Padres a little bit, but for Machado, he asked for his time. The umpire said, I think it'll be more fun to ring you up. Waited that 1 second and said, you're done. I mean... That's
ridiculous. Definitely ridiculous. I mean, I think there's sometimes too much of the ump show, but we'll move on from that.
Absolutely.
Stolen bases, a little more action on that. I noticed that there was a little more action on the base paths. There weren't any stolen bases in the game I was at, but you noticed a lot of stolen bases so far this year, I think.
Yeah, I think it's for two reasons. There's two rule changes. The number of pickoff attempts, I think, is the major factor. The bases, I don't think are, the bases are 3 inches wider altogether.
3 inches wider. I do think that actually makes it a little bit of a difference because it's 4.5 inches from first to second shorter. So think about 4.5 inches. 4.5 inches matters. Don't let anybody tell you 4.5 inches doesn't matter.
Hi, Brandon.
Come on, Michael. I'm just telling you. 4.5 inches makes all the difference. But think about the bang bang plays that you get for stolen bases. It's just that less bang bang.
I don't think that factors as much because the statistic I'm going to throw here is runners on opening day in 2023 were 21 for 23 in steal attempts, compared to 2022 where they were 5 of 9 in 7 games on opening day last year. So there were 23 steal attempts compared to 9.
So there were 15 games this year. So 23 divided by 15 is just about 1.5. And then last year there were 9 attempts in 7 games. So it's up a little bit. The success rate is up.
Rate is even up. Right.
So that'll. I think part of it is the bases, though. From the naked eye, I couldn't tell that the bases made much of a difference in the game. Being at the game, they did look slightly bigger, but it didn't look like it was an abomination. But overall, I did think they looked slightly bigger. As far as, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think it's more of they only have 3 pickoff attempts, and the runners know that. And then
they really only have 2 because the third one, if they aren't successful. Right. So I don't think a lot of right.
So they know they're limited. So they know if they get thrown over once, they can get a little bit bigger lead. They can watch that pitch clock because some pitchers know if they're either going to grab that ball, the batter's ready and go, or they'll hold it for just a few seconds. So they're able to time pitchers better, and know they're not going to throw over. So they're willing to get a little bit bigger of a lead probably, and then take off. I think both rules affect more than the bigger bases.
Yeah, we'll see later on throughout the season. I do think that it's probably more so the pitch clock, but also I do think that the bigger bases do have a little bit of an impact, probably on that success rate too.
Success rate, right?
Jorge Mateo and Cedric Mullins, both on Baltimore, lead the league, along with Miles Straw right now with 4 stolen bases, all 3 of them. For perspective, Cedric Mullins, I think, led the league last year for the AL, and he had 34. So he's already if you
Where's
do
Corbin
4 to
Carroll on that list? Because Corbin Carroll had 3.
he's got
in one
3,
game.
and he's in 5th on the list, tied
Okay.
with Gleyber Torres and Anthony Volpe or Volpe. I'm going to call him Volpe, but I think it's Volpe.
I think it's Volpe too.
Yeah, I'm going to call him Volpe in Michael Berman
Like
style.
Logan O'Hoppe. That was Logan O'Hoppe. It's Logan O'Hoppe.
So that has been something to watch, at least rules changes wise. There have been a few breakout players here to start the year. I think the one that has stood out the most to me is because I live in the city that he's playing is Jason Vossler. He's filling in for Joey Votto at first base. He had a 3-run bomb. He was drafted by the Cubs, played in the Cubs organization, and basically won them the game last night versus the Cubs that I was at with a 3-run bomb, an amazing defensive play at first to end the game. He's had a great start. I think he was batting like 400 with a couple of bombs. He just hit another home run, his 3rd one tonight. Not 3rd one of the night, but his 3rd one on the season tonight. He's been a surprise.
That's the standout for the Reds. The Reds, aren't they the team that had the owner say, if you don't like it, he's not spending money on the team, go find another team to cheer for?
He said, I can move the team.
I can move the team.
Yeah,
And
I can
so
move
the
somewhere
Reds,
else.
They didn't sign anybody. They let Moustakas go, and I'm pretty sure, or maybe his
Moose
contract
was terrible
up.
for him last year.
But he was terrible. But all of a sudden, if we look at the standings here, the Reds beat
They're
the Cubs.
first in the NL.
They're
Coming into today, they were first in the NL. They
were
lost to
3-1.
the Cubs tonight. So they were 3-1 coming in. As we started this podcast, the Cubs beat them. So as we started this podcast, it was technically a 3-1 record tied with the Brewers at the top of the standings, which would have been
And unfortunately,
third best.
as I hit refresh, they're
Yeah.
3-2, and the Brewers are 4-1. So
and the Brewers are 4-1. So the Brewers
you get
lead
for
that
Cincinnati.
division. Yep. But still, like Cincinnati had a pretty good start. They did play the Pirates, and they got a game against the Cubs. There's a 1-1 against the Cubs. But
what are
still,
you saying about the
they-
Cubs?
no, I'm just saying,
they got a game against they got a win against the Cubs. I'm following.
right? Yeah, they got a game against the Cubs. There's the win. Yes, now you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
But the Pirates have won back-to-back games at Boston. They're 3-2 in the division. So the NL Central, the Brewers are on top. The Cardinals are on the bottom. Will that be how it finishes? Probably not. The team that has come out flying, the Atlanta Braves, 4-1. Mets in their division 3-3. That's as of this recording. So the games that are playing right now aren't going to be included. But I guess the Phillies and the Nationals at 1-4 at the bottom of that division. The Dodgers 3-2. That's a tight division so far. 3-3 Arizona. San Diego's 3-3. San Fran is 2-2, and they're playing the White Sox tomorrow. They pummeled the White Sox yesterday. And then the Colorado Rockies are 2-3. So that's your NL standings. Michael, you got the AL.
Yeah, the AL. Tampa Bay, undefeated
Man.
at 5-0. Undefeated.
And a plus 26 run differential. So pitching, they've only given up 11 total runs in 5 games.
I mean, Jeffrey Springs for him came out, pitched 6 innings and 12 Ks. That's what you want to see from your pitching staff.
Yep, I was going to ask you if you knew who led the league in pitching WAR so far this year, but I think you just guessed that
I
one.
think I just nailed that one.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, both me and Brandon's AL East pick, Toronto is at the bottom there, 1-3. They are facing Kansas City as we speak, who is also 1-3. So
It's early.
It's early. So just a segment we have, maybe we might mention here later. Overreactions of week 1. Overreaction week 1. So finishing out, Tampa Bay's at the top 5-0. Yankees 3-2. Baltimore 2-2. They are facing Texas as we speak. Boston is 2-3. They kind of got a little bit of lucky win. They should be 1-4.
Oh, I was going to say, did you see the end of that game? Did you
Yes.
see the end of that game?
I
Ridiculous.
Sure did. Ridiculous.
So for those of you who
have
didn't,
that.
the Red Sox were down to their last out. There's a fly ball to left field to end the game. The outfielder dropped the ball. It was in his glove. He heeled it
Hit him
right
in
off
the
of.
glove.
It hit him in the glove. It hit him right in the heel. Fell out. The next batter, Adam Duvall, hit a walk-off 2-run homer to win the game over the Green Monster. And
Hey,
it
that's
was
what
bedlam.
real hitters do. They take advantage of situations.
Is it Gary Thorne who's the announcer there? He called it. He said, "Oh well, Duvall could hit a home run and win the game," and sure enough, he
Why
did.
did that sound
So,
like Harry Carey?
Harry Carey here. That doesn't sound like Harry Carey.
No, your impression there a little bit.
Maybe we'll have to.
Thorne.
We'll have to listen back. Listen back to the tape.
So yeah. So anyways, Toronto's at the bottom. They're 1-3. Like I said, facing Kansas City. The AL Central, kind of as we would expect. Cleveland.
It literally looks about what I think the end of the year standings would probably look like.
Yeah, Cleveland 4-1, Minnesota 4-1, White Sox 2-3, Detroit 1-3, and Kansas City 1-3. So that's probably the division that is playing as expected.
Mm-hmm.
And then finishing out the AL, the Angels 3-1, facing the Seattle Mariners tonight. Texas 3-1, who is facing Baltimore. Houston is 2-3, playing the Tigers. Oakland is playing Cleveland, as I already mentioned. They are 1-3 in Seattle. Brandon's pick to win it all.
Yep, 1-4.
1-4 facing the Angels right now.
Still early.
Right. Again, it's week 1.
Weren't the Phillies under 500 and fired their manager like 10 games below 500 and went to the World Series last year?
Right in the middle. In what, June?
May or June. They fired Joe Girardi.
Was that Girardi?
It was Girardi, and now he's in the booth for the Cubs, which was actually cool to hear this past weekend.
Joe Girardi was what, the Cubs catcher in the early 2000s?
1998. I know he was in 1998.
I remember that because he was on my Game Boy game.
Yep.
For baseball.
So,
that's right.
The Tigers. I'm sorry, not the Tigers. The Rangers. Did you see what they did in their first 2 games? 27 runs versus the Phillies. And then they've scored 2 runs since. But still, really fun start to the year. Some players, I mentioned Jason Vossler. I know Dansby Swanson has had himself a start to his Cubs career.
Making history. The dude's hitting 500 before tonight.
Yeah, I think he was sitting 625 at one point yesterday when I looked up on the big scoreboard. Speaking of that, Cody Bellinger has had a rough start to his Cubs career, but I called the home run. And I tweeted it out, and we had it on our Instagram account. So if you want to check that out, go head over to Twitter. But I said Cody Bellinger was going to hit a home run in his first at-bat yesterday, and the dude hit a 3-run shot to right field. So go check that out. It's on our Twitter account. There's our shameless plug. Okay, back to Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we then look at these overall standings, the quick overreaction would be the Phillies at 1-4. Their offense obviously is going to score more runs than 16.
Mm-hmm.
They have 16 5 games.
I think my overreaction is probably going to be the Mariners, just because I picked them to win the World Series. But
same here. Here we go.
But yeah, it's both our World Series picks, isn't it?
Yes, it was both our World Series picks in the dumpsters right now.
That's hilarious, honestly. The Blue Jays too. They were, I think, in my
both of our division picks.
Yeah, both of our division pick at 1-3. But again, it's still early. 4, 5, 6 games for some of these teams, so we don't even have a good sample
it's
size.
So early.
I mean, some of these players who, like Cody Bellinger, he had an amazing spring, but he has not played up to that since starting. Like Kyle Schwarber, has been trashed with a 41% strikeout rate. He is literally the worst player in baseball, along with Jake Crow.
Careful what you say about my boy Schwarbs.
Oh, no. Middletown, Ohio's very own. Hey, I give the forecast to Kyle Schwarber every winter because he lives in Middletown, Ohio. But he's got a minus 0.3 WAR so far. I'm just going off a WAR on Fangraph. So he's been the least effective batter at 41.2% strikeout rate. Do you know who leads the league in WAR already with nearly a win already through 4 games?
Just because I have a fantasy thing up here, I'm going to say it is Adam Duvall.
It is 0.7 WAR. He's got 2 home runs. It
could have been someone. That's WAR's special. You know, WAR's a different calculation.
He's driven in 9. He's walked 10% of the time. He's got an ISO of 647. BABIP's a little high.
His slugging is over 1,000. It is 1235.
1235. Nolan Gorman's at 1,000. And Joey Gallo. How about a name there? 3 home runs. I think he leads the league in home runs with 3. Him, Trace Thompson, Brian Reynolds, and C.J. Crone at 3 home runs.
And C.J. Crone doing it outside of Coors Field.
Were they on the road?
C.J. Crone doing it outside of Coors. That's huge for him because Last year it was the Coors Field effect for him.
Mm-hmm. So Joey Gallo, how about that? Goes to Minnesota. He's got 3 bombs in 4 games with 7 ribbies. What did he?
And
I think
only
he had
4 strikeouts. Only 4 strikeouts.
Yeah, he's striking out 28.6% of the time. So that's your short-term overreactions on the good side. Because who is James Outman?
Right.
I wouldn't want to have that name if I was a batter, Outman. But he's on the Dodgers and he's batting .333, but he's tied for 3rd in the MLB with a .5 WAR so far. And he's been on the Dodgers, Yoan Moncada. So those are some names you wouldn't be expecting to see at the top of the list. But again, 5 games, everybody can have a nice 5-game start or a bad 5-game start. On the pitching side, Shohei shoved, Noah Syndergaard. How about the Cubs, the first 2 games? Starting pitchers between Marcus Stroman and Justin Steele. I don't think they gave up a run, did they, combined?
I don't think Showman did because they shut the Brewers on opening day. 4-0,
Right.
let's go. Cheers.
And Justin Steele, I think, threw 6 shutout innings in well. I think they went 18 innings of shutout baseball.
And then who was game 3? We lost. We couldn't take it all.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. That was Tyone.
Schwarber was the that was Tyone. Schwarber.
There's another
is only batting 0.059. Teoscar Hernandez, who we mentioned, is a big player who moved over from Toronto to Seattle. Also batting .059. Overreaction on the dump side. I think he will rebound. Aaron Judge is hitting .412.
He hit the first home run of the year.
He is slugging .765, but he is in 3rd place for strikeouts in the league. So, I mean, he's either smashing the ball or striking out. There's no ground outs for that guy. I
will say the guy that Michael picked for Cy Young of the AL had a rough start, Alek Manoah. While my Cy Young currently sits as tied for 2nd in the MLB and pitcher of WAR, Luis Castillo, 6 innings of shutout baseball. So you're welcome. I hope you followed me on that one.
Hey, Spencer Strider. Spencer Strider,
he is
ERA.
He is
9 Ks in 6 innings. Dub. Only 3 hits.
To chime back to last week's episode, I did put some money on every team that I picked to win the division.
Oh, did you?
So, yep.
That's fine.
I'll have to post a screenshot now that episode's been out for a week to show those. And if you missed that episode and you want to know what our picks are, go head on over into any of those Apple or Spotify playlists and just look up episode 19. Barrels and Barrels goes BBC.
Is that what it's called, real?
Yeah, it says our 2023 predictions and Barrels and Barrels goes BBC. Bardstown Bourbon Company, for those of you who don't know. So your overreactions, the Phillies. Mine's the Marlins. Also, like I said, Cody Bellinger, but Dansby Swanson at 556. He's not going to hit that. Fantasy-wise, you mentioned Adam Duvall. Is he the hottest player to grab right now?
The hottest hitter. He's the most highest-scoring fantasy hitter. Jeffrey Springs is the highest-scoring fantasy pitcher. And number 2 pitcher, actually he's tied, but Seth Lugo of the San Diego Padres
now? Yeah. Is he starting? He's starting now, isn't he?
He's a starter for the Padres, but he's relief eligibility. That's huge if he were to continue that. So something to add to your scout team. Keep an eye on Seth Lugo. If you've got a spot to plug into your relief pitching, not a bad idea. He came from the Mets, didn't he, Seth Lugo?
Yep. He was the Mets. He was a starter for the Mets a couple of years ago, I think, when Harvey went down, and then he's been out of the bullpen for the last couple of years, and that's why he's probably got the relief pitching
he's not
eligibility.
Even close to starting. Oh.
So who would you be trying to grab fantasy-wise?
Fantasy-wise, Nolan Gorman. Kind of a little forgotten but baseball prospect.
For the Cardinals, right?
Hot start for the Cardinals, unfortunately. And it's second base.
Second base.
Mm-hmm.
But can he play shortstop too?
No, he's second base. I think
just second base.
He came up as a third baseman. They traded for Nolan Arenado, and they started giving him more time at second base. So Nolan Gorman is definitely a guy to go grab. He has the prospect pedigree. He's got the history. because they signed Arenado, and he kind of slow between AAA and MLB.
Yeah.
He's the guy to grab. He's not owned in very many leagues yet, but that will change because he's got the pedigree.
Yeah. Cool. And you guys just put out another episode of Fantasy
Baseball Camp.
Fantasy Baseball Camp.
Yep. We got episode 3 coming out Friday, April. Was Friday, April 7th? Our first regular episode, where we'll have waiver wire advice and more like regular advice to prepare you for your week.
Cool. And when are waivers usually for those who are just new to the game?
Depends on what your league does. Waivers can be nightly, or they can be certain times of the week.
Are they usually Sunday nights or?
That's usually when the week starts. Is Monday mornings.
Monday mornings
through Sunday. Yeah.
So you have to set. Sometimes you have to set your lineup Sunday night before the week.
Right.
I played in a league. That you can set your lineup every day, which made it a lot more of a hassle because you're like, I gotta figure out pitching matchups and all that every day.
And who pays attention wins. Yeah,
right,
hard.
Right. So
to finish, Brandon, here, there's Buffalo Trace.
Yes. Oh, that's right.
It's close. I'm not going to say it's so close that I would fail a blind, because Buffalo Trace has the Buffalo Trace. At least I'm familiar with the Buffalo Trace taste, the profile. You put E.H. Taylor in a glass. You put Buffalo Trace in a glass. Eagle Rare, Stag Jr. I haven't had. That's all I can say that I've had. Buffalo Trace. Yeah. It's got its taste. It's certain profile. But it's. I would still say it's close. It's along the same lines of sweet up front, spicy in the middle, and oaky the finish. So I still stand by it. It's a great comp. Buffalo Trace. It's a cheap. Poor man's Buffalo Trace, but yet it's more expensive.
That's funny. That's a good one right there. One thing real quick I want to point out. What did the Padres do with their starters? I don't think Darvish or Musgrove pitched in the first 2 games. I think Snell
Musgrove's
opened
hurt.
up. Musgrove's still hurt.
Musgrove's hurt. I think it's his toe. And Darvish pitched today for the first time, I think, giving him some rest from the WBC.
That's what I figured, because I figured they were probably just going to bump him back as much as they could, but because they played the Rockies game 1, 2, and 3.
And now the Diamondbacks.
Yeah. I figured at first I was like, oh, well, they don't want to pitch him against the Rockies because, I mean, if you've got a chance to get him against a team that maybe he could do better. Yeah. It was Michael Wacha who started for the Padres in game 2, I believe. Waka.
No Pac-Man.
Yeah. So one other thing, I noticed, I'm looking at the schedule here, weekend series that I would think would be one to watch. The Padres visit the Braves. So those are 2 potential playoff teams.
They are Sunday Night Baseball, actually. So get done with your Easter day and put on Sunday Night Baseball for Braves Padres.
And they are on Apple TV on Friday, which is a new thing. I think that started last year. The Cubs are also on Apple TV on Friday, hosting the Rangers. Another series that weekend, the Brewers hosting the Cardinals. Friday, a pretty good matchup. I think Jack Flaherty versus Brandon Woodruff.
I watched that game.
And that's really the only 2 series that maybe the Twins hosting the Astros. I mean, the Twins are my division winner, but I don't think that's going to be a great series by any means. I guess Cleveland hosts Seattle again after they played each other last weekend. So that was a good series. Did you? They had multiple, I think, extra inning games in that, and that's another reason why the Mariners were an overreaction at 1-4. They lost an extra inning game where if they win that, they're 2-3, and all of a sudden, hey, they're almost 500.
If they win an extra inning game last year in the playoffs, then it's a completely different story.
Right. So,
like you said, I think you mentioned you were questioning what they went into extra innings and lost. Oh, hold on. Up there here, Kyle Schwarber just went deep against German, against the Yankees. There we go. Schwarber's back in it, baby.
So say sorry to Jesse, sorry to Jerry, sorry also to JP. Our Yankees are token Yankees fans that listen to our podcast. So, sorry. What's the score?
Well, actually, I thought it was live. It's just a review. So,
Oh,
then
already
Brandon Marsh
happened.
went update. Turner just knocked in Marsh. It's 3-0 in the 5th inning.
alrighty. Well, there you go. So sorry to our Yankees fans. Those would be the series I'd watch, that Atlanta Braves and Padres, but also Cardinals and Brewers, if you had to watch some teams that weren't your favorite.
Yeah, I'll pass on the Brewers and Cardinals.
Yep, that's the Cardinals. Willie got hurt
And
day
the
one.
Brewers.
Yeah, well, yeah, true.
I love
Yeah.
April Fool's obvious shirts, who are Cubs. They create shirts for Cubs fans. For April Fool's said, we are going to create shirts for Milwaukee fans now, too.
That's funny. I bet you Milwaukee fans got so excited, too, because the shirts are great. I wore my obvious shirt, clock shirt, the Wrigley scoreboard clock yesterday to Great American Ballpark.
Yeah, I saw it in the picture you sent me. That was great. That's a great shirt.
And they also, I think, retweeted one of our tweets the other day. So shout out to Joe from Obvious Shirts.
There we go.
There we go. Anything else for our friends and family and viewers and listeners before we wrap this puppy up? Thoughts on baseball? It was good to have it back, hasn't
it's still exciting. I love
Yeah.
walking in here, turning it on, and having games on. I wish MLB would plan to have games all day that don't matter. Like people grew up as Cubs
At
fans.
least on weekend days.
Right. And people grew up as Cubs fans because they'd come home and the Cubs were on national TV, WGN.
Yeah,
If you
WGN
want
was
people
free.
watching, have baseball on all the time. Have a game on and available to watch all the time. Rob Manfred.
Well, it has been good to see it again. Happy to have baseball back. Of course, we love baseball, so who isn't happy to have it? My opening day experience, real quick, before we wrap this up.
Yeah, let's go.
I got to go and sit outside and do the newscast outside of Great American Ballpark for opening day. I have been told by
pass. You just have a ticket, right? You had a special pass.
Oh, no, I've got
Brandon Spinner.
So that's a press pass. I can go on the field whenever I want now. But I'm
Oh,
not gonna.
Let's go, baby.
I'm not going to overuse that. I don't know if I'll use it at all. But I can get into the games for free if I wanted to. But went there yesterday, paid for my ticket and parking. So there you go. As far as the opening day experience itself, I have been told by multiple people who have been to multiple opening days that Cincinnati does it better than anybody. And I gotta say, I kind of agree with them. It was so Wrigley Field is on the north side of Chicago, but that's where the festivities are. This was the entire city, Michael. The entire city of Cincinnati. They shut down the city. They had an opening day parade, which lasted 2 hours, which was
opening day parade.
Yeah, and the grand marshals
For a team
were
that's gonna fish 4th place.
They do it every year. Bronson Arroyo and Danny Graves came back. Barry Larkin's in the parade. Some old Reds come back for it. The city shuts down. Literally, it's a 2-hour parade, and everybody goes to the parade. Everybody takes it off like it's a holiday. It's literally an unofficial holiday. And I got to go down to Moorline Lager House, which is just outside the station. That's where we did our newscast from. I don't know if you saw on Instagram, but I decked out in my black and red suit coat and wore a Cincinnati Reds hat because it's another thing. I buy hats for every team that I've seen play in their home stadium. Don't come at me.
What some people will do for money. What some people will do for money.
For everybody else, I've got a Cubs tattoo, so I literally bleed Cubby blue and Cubby red. That is not changing. But it was an amazing experience. They shut down the streets around the stadium. So think about Waveland Avenue as a bar. And that's what it is outside of Cincinnati Reds opening day. Now, the game I went to last night, there probably were 8,000 people in the stadium. But opening day was electric. Opening day was electric.
Last night.
But
they were excited for the first game. Baseball's back, but then they know what the owner's all about.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I think a lot of Cincinnatians are actually not expecting much, mainly because they've sold off the team in the last year and a half, and the owner said the crap that he said last year. There is a sour taste in a lot of the Reds fans' mouths, but they all come out for opening day, and it's really cool. It was, I'll say, it was a very cool experience. I got the chills just being there. Part of it was just because I was covering a baseball game, but also It was just being back to a baseball
you lived in
field.
Alabama for the last 5 years where we don't have baseball. The moment we
Right.
got it, and the trash can was you left. And now you're part of the
Right.
press where you get to cover a professional MLB baseball. Come on, Brandon. You can't ask for more besides skipping weather and just talking baseball. I don't know
Oh,
that
right. Well,
maybe
I did that on the newscast. I was the expert baseball guy. As far as Bourbon and Baseball podcast, you're giving this an all-star.
I all started, man. It was good. I killed it. I poured the whole sample you sent me, which usually I'll pour a little bit and then it lasts most of the episode. I killed that during the bourbon review portion.
Oh man, so you must be sad. Here's what's
Must be
gonna.
sad.
Oh, and if you're still listening, you can get an Easter Bunny sample from me. If you're one of
Just contact and say I
reach
want
out.
to sample.
Yeah. Just say, I want a sample in the subject, or just reach out to us on Instagram, and I'll get that shipped out to you. Just send me your address as well, because it makes it a little easier to get it to you. This has been another episode 20 of Barrels and Barrels, the Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Thank you for being with us through 20 episodes. You can find us on YouTube. Please hit the subscribe button. Instagram, Barrels and Barrels Pod. Instagram, that is at Barrels and Barrels Pod. Also Facebook and YouTube. Twitter, at Barrels and Barrels. Michael, your Instagram account.
Instagram is at BNB_Burns. I just hit 500 followers, Brandon. That kind of a little milestone for an individual account.
Woo,
I hit 500.
We'll get to 3,300 at some point. Humble brag. Not to put you down, but
I'm kind
Twitter,
of a
you're
big
also
deal,
there too.
didn't you know?
People know me. And on Twitter, you've been a little more active as well.
Yeah, Twitter has a very active fantasy baseball audience and interactions. So that's always fun. I've been trying to be more active there in my own postings.
And I believe that is Burns BNB. If you
Burns
search it,
BNB.
I am WX Spinner 89 on Twitter. We are on Twitter as a show at Barrels and Barrels, the letter N in the middle there. And on Instagram, you can find me at whiskey_weather. Email.
Oh, look at his shirt right there. Look at that, baby. Whiskey
there's
Weather,
the
his
logo.
logo. He's got his own logo, folks. Come on. That's why he has 3,000 followers.
3,327. Jeez.
I need my own logo.
You did.
Give me your logo guy, Brandon.
You're gonna be my,
Oh, wait,
my logo,
you
yeah?
created that, didn't you?
I drew this, yes. And
That's
then our
pretty
buddy Jason at Bourbon and Burpees, he's the one who took my drawing and put it into the program and made it into the digital portion of it.
Real life.
Yeah, brought it to real
not
life.
paper and pen.
Yeah. And you can find us on Spotify, Apple, as well as Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon, and now on Stitcher. Please leave us a review. If you made it this far, you notice that we're giving our own opinions. We're giving out our thoughts. We're not changing. This is not scripted. This is off the cuff. These are our actual thoughts. And you heard Michael. He really likes Rabbit Hole. And I went with an everyday player. So we love to give out our honest opinion. We'd love to hear your honest opinion about us on our Spotify, Apple playlists, or even on Facebook or Instagram. Just send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for making it through episode 20 of Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast. Michael, you have anything else for our friends, family, listeners?
Let's go.